Don't leave me high. Don't leave me dry. Don't leave me high. Don't leave me dry. That's right. Don't leave me dry. Don't leave me high and dry.
Definitely not.
It's like the same as saying don't leave me hanging, right?
It's exactly the same as don't leave me hanging, but with
You
some
mean
different words.
Don't leave me hanging high and dry.
Oh, you silly.
Like a t-shirt.
And we never like to leave anyone high and dry because this is American Brews and Tunes.
Here's a theme song, you know it's not a mean song. It's a good song, just as it should song. American Brews and Tunes. Shibbity beeby dow.
That's right, this is American Brews and Tunes.
What episode number?
Number 60.
60?
Wow.
Oh
we're
my
getting
gosh.
there. We're definitely over the hill.
Way over the hill. We're on our way down to the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, we're just getting closer to death every day.
Yeah. Who isn't, though?
A good question. It's a very good question. Someone who's already died?
True.
But that's the only thing I can think of. Anyways, my name is Stephen Johnston.
And my name is Jesse Titus.
And we are back to our regular format episode, which means I'm reviewing an album that Jesse has reviewed for me.
Recommended.
Let me rephrase that for all of you. I am reviewing an album that Jesse has recommended for me.
And I am reviewing an album that Steve has recommended for me.
So for the past 2 weeks, I've been listening to Yankee Hotel Foxtrot by Wilco.
Yeah. And for the past 2 weeks, I've been listening to Brainless God, an album by Direct Hit. Is there an exclamation point?
There is.
Direct Hit.
Yeah, so it's
Direct Hit.
I guess. But these two albums couldn't be more different.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I guess they could be more different, but they're
Definitely. I
They're
mean,
not the same.
one is like kind of alternative folk country pop
rock.
and the other one is like hardcore punk.
I wouldn't even say hardcore punk, but it's different.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Like hardcore melodic
Hardcore melodic punk.
pop punk. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. But we're excited to be doing the regular format because I feel like we've been all over the place for a little while.
We have been.
But we're going to continue to be all over the place because this podcast is about music and beer and all the great things that have to go with it.
And you know what? Music and beer are all over the place.
They are.
That's right.
So we're going to be all over the place.
Obviously.
But we're going to keep coming back and reviewing music and beer.
Yeah.
But before we review said albums, should we talk about our brews for this week?
Yes.
I feel like it's been a little while since we've had differing brews.
It has been because we've been doing mostly one-off episodes.
One-offs and recommendations.
Yeah.
But we're back to it where Jesse and I both have different beers that we are reviewing.
Yeah.
So what are you having this week?
I got something that's a joint session from Lagunitas and Shorts Brew.
I've never heard of Shorts Brew. Have you?
Neither have I. But it's called Passion Grass. West by Midwest. All brewed with lemongrass and passion fruit. And it is coming in at 4.6%. So not very boozy.
That would be the session part. And you said it's an IPA?
No.
Session what? A session...
No, it just says a joint session with Shorts Brew. So it's like a collaboration.
Oh, okay. But clocking it at
And
that, it
it's
sounds
just
like a session
It's
beer.
an ale.
Okay.
It's just
so
an
it's
ale.
So
Ale
it's
brewed
vague.
with lemongrass and passion fruit.
Curious. I'm very
The
curious.
label's kind of cool though. It's like a weird kind of grass green with pink.
Well, that would be the grass.
Passion fruit and the lemongrass.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Curious,
Charlie.
Curious. I'm having something very different.
Yeah.
From Clown Shoes beer. I
haven't had too many beers by them, but the ones I've had have been pretty good.
I've had some of their stuff in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh. They had a little bit more distribution than they do down here.
Because where are they from?
They're from Boston.
Boston, okay.
They've only recently started getting some stuff down here in Nashville.
Okay.
So I was excited to see it, so I bought one. I bought the Space Cake Double IPA.
Nice.
And according to Beer Advocate, it is their highest rated offering.
Really?
So I'm excited to give it a try.
Nice.
Here's what the description says. And this description has a lot to do with the picture on the beer can.
Okay, yeah.
And if you actually look at the beer can, it's this guy, and he looks like he's got a Superman costume, and he's got a space helmet, and he's flying through space, and there's lasers going all over the place, and explosions. And there's a dog with him, and the dog also has a space suit, and he's flying along. So it's kind of a weird picture for something called the Space Cake.
Yeah, it's very strange, but...
It's a double IPA at 9%, but here's the description. It says, why are Miracle Mike and his dog Bionic being chased by many evil laser beam shooting cupcakes and 2 giant layer cake motherships?
Oh my god.
Because we're straight lunatic fools? Question mark. Well, maybe, but with a few brain cells remaining, we managed to craft Space Cake Double IPA, utilizing citrusy mosaic hops and an immaculate West Coast style malt backbone.
Huh.
Dude, ... chill out. Enjoy some space cake.
Nice. That sounds pretty good.
I think that description definitely came straight from Clown Shoes.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see how the West Coast backbone comes through.
I mean, it clocks in at 90 IBUs also.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So it should be pretty hoppy. I'm excited because I feel like most of the IPAs we've had recently are New England style. So it's nice to go back to what was the first big IPA kind of craze.
The first IPA that we got into anyway.
West Coasty style.
West Coast style.
So let's say that we open these beers and pour them and take a look.
Just as a side note, this beer is coming in at 54 IBUs.
Oh, that's more than I thought.
For a pale ale.
Yeah, curious.
So that's quite a bit for a pale ale.
So you said it's a pale ale now?
Yeah, that's what Untapped said anyway.
Okay. So I'm drinking from a can. Jesse's drinking from a bottle. So we got a couple different means to open our, what would you call these?
Ooh, I can already smell it.
Our containers, I guess.
This is a bottle, and I used a bottle opener.
This is a can, and I use my fingernail. But I just said we had a couple different ways to open our cans, or our containers.
Our respective containers, yeah. So this one smells really interesting.
Does it smell like grass?
Kind of.
Or like lemon? Lemongrass. What is lemongrass?
Lemongrass is a herb.
A herb? Is it like wheatgrass?
Can you not smell this right now?
Not. Well, I'm sitting across the table from you.
I can smell it like crazy.
Let me get a whiff of yours real quick.
It's so like weirdly herbal and floral.
It's got a dank smell. Is a way that I would describe the smell that I just smelled.
Yeah.
Get a smell, and what do you think?
Definitely a dank smell.
Yes, it smells illicit. Yours is pretty light in color.
Yeah, it's almost like a straw.
Yeah, it's got just a little head on top. Pretty good.
Little
size.
Little baby one.
Mine's a lot darker and thicker looking.
Definitely.
Probably like an orangish color, and it's got a bigger head.
What does yours smell like?
Let me get a whiff, and I'll tell you.
Oh, okay.
It smells like a juicy West Coast hop.
Okay.
You take a sniff and see what you think. It smells on par with what I'd expect from a juicy West Coast hop beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Nothing out of the ordinary, but I'm excited to give it a try.
Yeah.
I'm
kind of nervous about trying this now.
Don't be nervous. It'll be okay.
So weird smelling.
Rest assured, everything will be okay.
Yeah, I'm sure. Everything.
Be nervous.
Everything will be okay in the end.
Be bold.
Be bold. Be courageous.
Be everything that you want to be.
Yes.
If you dream it, you can be it.
What's
we
that
said
from?
that on a podcast before. It's from Blades of Glory.
Remember,
oh, yeah. Napoleon Dynamite's character says, I think something along the lines of, if you can dream it, you can be it.
Yeah.
So let's give these a cheers. Our classic American Brews and Tunes phrase.
Yep.
And then give it a little try.
Classic phrase.
Shibbity-beep-doo! Down the hatch. Wow. Mine's super smooth. I can get a little bit of that malty backbone that they were talking about in the description.
Yeah.
But it's not as aggressive as I was expecting a West Coast 90 IBU double IPA to hit me. It's really smooth. It's very tasty. I get the hops in there, but it's not like a punch in the palate.
Not a punch in the gut.
Yeah, it's really pleasant. It doesn't taste like 9% either.
Wow.
Maybe a little bit in the aftermath, like after you've taken the sip, processed it, swallowed, and then you're thinking about it. Maybe you get a little hint of booziness, but it's not really up front.
Yeah.
This is a really nice beer. I can see why it's so highly rated on Beer Advocate.
Nice.
Yeah. What about yours?
It is. Oh, it's interesting.
It's
Interesting. Let me get one more taste real quick.
yeah. Go for it. Just get that the taste buds a whirring and working. You know.
So it actually does taste pretty good. And I think I can't really taste too much of the passion fruit, but I'm thinking that's because the lemongrass is so strong that the passion fruit is just balancing it really well.
I think passion fruits. I'm assuming got a little bit of a tartness also, kind of like lemon, because I've had passion teas where I think they had passion fruit, and it's always very tart.
It's always tart.
Yeah, in a good way.
It tastes pretty good though. That dankness that we were smelling definitely translates into the flavor in the beer. But overall though, it's pretty good. I can see why it has 54 IBUs as well.
Would you compare it to anything else, or is it fairly unique?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. It's fairly unique in that way. But it is pretty tasty though. I'll say that. I'll give it a 3.75.
Fair rating. I gave mine a 4 on our favorite beer rating social app, Untapped.
Yes.
Yeah. Non-paid sponsorship. In fact, it's not a sponsorship at all. We just really like Untapped.
Yeah.
If you're looking for an app to keep track of the beers you've tried or see what your friends are trying, just check it out. It's called Untapped, and it's just a great app all around.
It is dope.
As always, if we think the beer flavor changes as it warms up to us, we will let you know. Otherwise,
Yes.
Shall we dive in?
Let's.
I'm going to take the lead and go with Wilco's album first because I think it's pretty big.
Okay.
Well, just different, so I'm going to put this one up front.
That's fine.
This album came out in 2001-ish. And I'll touch upon that in a second. It's the fourth album to come out from Wilco, and they're a Chicago-based alternate rock, alt-country band that kind of came from the end of another alt-country band. I don't know if you were familiar with them, but they were called Uncle Tupelo?
Yeah.
Tupelo?
I've never listened to them.
They were fairly popular. I never listened to them either, but they were, and they're like guitar player and singer Jeff Tweedy. Kind of went on, and him and some of the other members made Wilco. And I had heard Tweedy's name before.
Yeah.
But I never knew what he was from or had any idea who he was. But this is it, I guess.
Yeah.
He's fairly popular. I mean, obviously I've heard of him and never really listened to Wilco that much. I did, however, see Wilco live once.
Really?
From very, very far away. It was when I had my internship in Nashville 5-6 years ago. And Bob Dylan was playing down at the riverfront. It was before they had the amphitheater down there.
Yeah.
They set up a stage, and Bob Dylan played. And so me and some friends went down there, and we sat so far away outside the fence just to hear it for free.
Yeah.
And Wilco opened, and I don't really remember much of their set because I wasn't paying attention.
Interesting.
But I saw him, I guess.
Technically, yeah.
Anyways, back to this album specifically. They had been signed to Reprise Records, which was a subsidiary of Warner Music Group, Warner Records, you know?
Yeah.
Super big record label. And there was a big change in management after Warner had merged with AOL.
Oh, okay. Weird.
So they shifted around some big management positions, and the person who was in charge, the president of Reprise, who liked Wilco, was gone. And some A&R guy was, I guess, in charge of them, and they weren't too keen on Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. Like, it had been recorded, and they sent it to the label for what they do, I guess.
Yeah.
And the record label wanted Wilco to change it, or they weren't going to put it out. And Wilco's like, no, we're not going to change it.
They're like, no, we like it.
And so initially they were going to do a buyout program where I guess Wilco was going to pay the record label $50,000 to get the rights to the music.
Oh, really? Wow.
But eventually the record label just gave it to them for free. So they're like, we're not going to put this out, so you can have all the rights to your album for free. Goodbye.
Yeah. So they didn't want to put that album out or anything else in the future.
Yeah, so they cut all ties with Wilco. And Wilco, well, I guess not them, but the songs, certain songs from the album started popping up on file sharing sites.
Yeah.
This is 2001, so that's like what was Napster was real big, LimeWire, a couple other ones.
Yeah.
That was the big start of all the file sharing and all that crazy MP3 stuff.
Yeah.
And so they decided, instead of people hearing crappy, like, diluted MP3s of their songs, they just decided to put it out for free on their official website to stream it, and then they got tons of huge hits. And they wanted to release it September 11th, but they didn't.
They didn't, though, yeah.
They ended up actually releasing it, I think, a couple weeks later on their site. And less than a year later, some other labels were bidding for it for distribution and label rights.
Yeah.
And a label called Non-Such Records is the one that they ended up going with. And what's great about it is Non-Such Records is another subsidiary of Warner.
Really?
So Warner paid for the album, gave it back to Wilco for free, and then paid Wilco again.
That's pretty funny.
It's pretty funny. Obviously, none of that was planned, but it's really backwards.
They're like, crap, we gave away something good.
Yeah, and I mean, being subsidiaries, it's almost like being different companies, even though they're owned by the same company.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how like Marvel is owned by Disney, but also like other companies are owned by Disney. So it's like kind of like if something was moved from Marvel to what else is owned by Disney? Lucasfilm or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's just crazy that that's the trajectory of this album.
Yeah.
The album went on to peak at number 13 on the Billboard Top 200. It sold almost 600,000 units, which is a ton. It's definitely considered like their best album, and it's been widely considered like the best 500 albums of all time, best 200, however many.
It's on the Rolling Stone best 500 albums of all time list or something like that.
And before I go into the actual songs, and one interesting thing about this is a lot of people have made correlations between this album and 9/11.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
Some of the themes in the songs, people have attributed to it, even though they finished this before 9/11
They finished
happened.
it way before it, yeah.
And even the cover of the record, I don't know if you remember what it looks like. It's these two different towers in Chicago.
They're in Chicago, yeah.
Yeah. Which I've seen them before. I think I parked in one of them, actually.
Yeah.
But it's these two towers. I can't remember specifically where. It's like Marina something or other. But people have likened that to the two towers on 9/11.
All that was finalized before 9/11
way before.
happened.
But there are definitely some correlations you can make, even though it's not.
It's not related at all, though.
Yeah.
Weird.
It's just interesting. Yeah. Obviously, the band didn't know what was going to happen, but it's curious to think about if you're a conspiracy theorist,
yeah.
Or if you just think it's interesting. But either way, let's delve in, shall we?
Shall we?
Track number 1 is called I Am Trying to Break Your Heart. And this is quite an intro to their sound, I guess, at least on this album.
On this album, yeah.
It is I don't want to say disjointed, but it comes in with this like chaosy, almost seemingly unordered sounds and instrumentation that's just different. And it's just like
weird,
It's out there, and then the lyric, the verse comes in, and it starts to pull together a little bit, and as the verse progresses, the song does come together more until the very end when it's really disjointed even more.
Again.
Yeah. But it's weird. It's like dizzying almost, some of the sounds in this album, which relate to the themes of this song.
Yep.
Which is like
it's like
being drunk and lonely in a big city, feeling alone or lost, and that's what the singer's talking about after a breakup and kind of like wandering around, being drunk and disorderly. And I guess I think Tweedy had talked about having substance abuse problems, and that definitely comes back a lot in this album, and I think that's what he was talking about in this song. It's a really cool song. I gave it 4 out of 5.
Nice.
But I didn't recommend it.
Gotcha.
But it's really cool way to show what their sound might be like.
Yeah.
Even though on
the
track
next
number
song
2
is
100% different.
Yeah.
The next song is called Camera, spelled with a K. It's super straightforward, melodic, and it's just much more accessible, like more of a mainstream sounding song.
Yeah,
I guess is a way to put it.
Yeah,
comes in with that drum beat. I gave it 3.5 out of 5. It's just weird that there's such a juxtaposition sound wise between the first song and this song.
It is interesting that they decided to start off with that song with "I Am Trying to Break Your Heart."
But I think having that first and this second sets a recurring pattern, which will happen again. Like the next song, track number 3, is going to go back to crazy sounding, and then track number 4 is going to be more straightforward.
Yeah.
And I think they do that probably on purpose, I would assume.
I would assume so, yeah.
Like a mainstream sounding song and then a more experimental sounding.
Yeah.
But Camera, track number 2, is definitely more accessible, mainstream sounding. And this song seems to be about exploring different ways to like see truth about yourself. He's talking about looking through a camera, like a different lens.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure why he chose, I don't know if it was his choice or the band's choice, why they chose to title the song Camera with a K.
For Kodak.
Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not sure. There's obviously some reason. It's not an accident, I don't think.
Yeah.
But it's an introspective song.
Yeah.
Much of this album is introspective about loss, regret, meaning, and the such.
Generally
so on
about
and so
life.
forth. Yeah.
Yep.
Moving on to track number 3, which is called Radio Cure. It's the only song I give 5 out of 5, and I
Wow.
recommended it.
It's a good song.
Yeah. Would you expect me to pick this one as my highest rated?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think you would because it's out there.
It's not as straightforward as most of the other songs.
This might be the least straightforward song on the whole album, I think.
Yeah.
It's slightly abstract sounding.
Mm-hmm.
The chord choices are weird.
Yep.
The melodic choices are weird.
Yep.
It's slower and somber.
Yep.
But it's really cool sounding. it's just hard to say, but it's really cool sounding.
Yeah.
He seems to be talking about his faults, perhaps substance abuse again, which I think perhaps is very strongly probably about his substance abuse. But how there's these things that fill his mind, which he calls radio cure.
Yeah.
Like the radio, it fills my mind like a radio cure. So I think that's what he says in the chorus. So that probably could be music, or maybe it's hearing somebody's voice over a radio.
Yeah.
Because later on in the song, he talks about distance, which is probably my favorite line in the song. He says, "Oh, distance has a way of making love has no way of making love understandable."
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's talking about being in a relationship that's long term and like having it
Being far away
rough,
from them.
or if he's just using that as an abstract term to talk about not feeling a connection or having some disconnect to something you love and feeling lonely. It could be relationship based, or it could be an abstract thing about him feeling lonely and disconnected, detached from society, detached from others, maybe.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of the song too.
Yeah.
Whenever like oh, distance has no way of making love.
At the very last,
understandable.
yes, the very last time he says that
It
line,
almost sounds like
his
he's like
voice
crying
breaks.
or
It sounds like even when he's doing it, not when he jumps up the octave, it sounds like his voice breaks a little bit, and it sounds really like he's crying almost, or he's saying something like straight from the heart. And he's having a hard time saying it.
Yeah.
But when he jumps up that octave, it's almost a little heartbreaking to hear him say that.
Yeah.
Like it just sounds really genuine.
Yeah, and that line goes along really well with the music at that point too, or with the music of the whole song.
Yeah, cool
that,
song.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on to track number 4, we're back to the more straightforward sounds.
Mm-hmm.
This song is called "War on War," and I gave it 4 out of 5.
It's a war on war. It's a war on war.
And obviously, "War on War" as an anti-war statement. Pretty much, you're warring the war.
You're fighting against the fight.
Yeah. This song talks about, well, I think it talks about how you need to appreciate life. And I feel like I'm pretty safe in saying that because he talks about how you need to learn how to die in order to live.
If you want to be alive,
Yeah, so you got to appreciate life because you know that it's going to come to an end.
It's like that John Foreman song, Learning How to Die.
It is like that song. Very much so.
Similar message.
Yeah. But that's all I have to say about War on War. It's catchy.
Yeah.
It's very, very catchy.
Yep.
Moving on to track number 5, which is called Jesus, Etc.
Yep.
I gave it 4 out of 5. And it was what's the first line of the song? He says,
Jesus, don't cry.
yeah, that's right.
You can't rely on me, honey.
Apparently, it was originally supposed to be called Jesus, Don't Cry.
Oh, really?
But during one of the mixing sessions, they kept calling it Jesus, Etc. And so they stuck with that.
It's pretty funny.
I don't think it's as much religiously charged as direct hits Brainless God.
No.
Or as the title might suggest.
I think it's like using the name Jesus in that. What's the term for that? Whenever you use a name, it'd be like me saying like, "Oh, Jesus, don't cry." Not that the name Jesus isn't use it and
as
then
like I don't want to say an exclamation, but using it as a interjection.
Something like that.
I don't know, but
it's like it's like saying, "Come on, don't cry."
Yeah,
but
I think this is an introspective song for people in general trying to find meaning. And in the bridge, I think it's tied together when he's talking about love.
Yeah.
Because without that, the song would definitely feel incomplete. And he's talking about how love is pretty much all we have to give. Because he's definitely searching for meaning throughout the whole song, and they're talking about stars and how we're burning suns or whatever, but the love is all we have pretty much.
Yeah.
And I think that's a cool way to take it out.
The song's so catchy.
This song is one of the ones that people have referred to for 9/11 relations, like
oh really?
Conspiracies, because he talks about shaking towers a couple times in towers.
Oh yeah, he says
colliding.
tall buildings shake.
Yeah, and so some people have likened it to that and finding meaning through that, perhaps. Even though clearly this was written way before and recorded way before, but
wow,
it's interesting to think about that.
I didn't even think about that because the line is
tower.
tall buildings shake, voices escape, making sad, sad songs.
Yeah.
Two chords strummed down your cheeks, a bitter melody.
Yeah.
Turning your orbit around. Yeah, that's really weird.
When you think about that, two chords falling down your cheeks after talking about the two shaking towers.
Yeah. Weird.
Clearly, that's not what he's talking about, but
there's no way
you can make connections.
You could definitely. I mean, isn't that kind of how all conspiracies are?
Yes, people find ways to relate it.
You find the connection that you want to make, and then you're justified because you found that connection.
Yeah, but most people heard this after 9/11, and it was released after 9/11. But it was,
even though they wrote and recorded it before 9/11. That's so weird.
Can you imagine if they actually released it on 9/11? Like Ben Folds' album wasn't any conspiracy theorist's target, but that one came out in 9/11.
And it did not do well.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Moving on to track number 6, which is Ashes of American Flags. I gave this 3.5 out of 5.
And I could see how this song would be related to that, too.
Yes.
I would like to salute.
A lot of this song comes from a book from the American novelist Henry Miller?
Henry Miller?
Yeah, I don't know why I pluralized his last
name. Henry Miller's?
But the book is called Tropic of Cancer. I've never read it, but apparently Tweety used to read this book and carry it with him for years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And there's multiple little bits from this song taken directly from there.
Interesting.
So maybe I'll check it out. I'm curious.
That's pretty cool.
The title of this song makes me think it's going to be super political.
It's not really,
but it's not. I don't think it is. Maybe there's some maybe politicized things in there, but it's really not what the title would suggest. It's again more like introspective and personal. It's talking about him being like the person he wants to be, or that he wants to be for somebody else, but being super discouraged. And the one line I really like, which doesn't necessarily relate to that theme, is when he's talking about poets commenting on life. Like, why would people listen to poets when no one gives a F? That's the only swear on the whole album.
When nobody gives up. Yeah.
Because they don't really seem like the kind of band that would put curses into their songs.
Yeah, no. Whenever I first listened to this album, I was like, huh, interesting.
It throws you off. But I mean, he picked that for a reason.
Specifically, yeah.
I think swear words are best used sparingly, so that when you do use them, it's for a purpose and
it makes
cuts.
a bigger impact.
Yeah, because like when I heard it, I was like, oh, that's I was placed there for a reason. These guys don't seem like the cursing band, and there's no other curses in the rest. So when he uses it, it means something.
Yeah.
And I really like that line. Moving on to track number 7, which is called Heavy Metal Drummer. I gave it 4.5 out of 5, and it's my next recommendation. I know when you had told me about this album, you said, you probably know this song, Heavy Metal Drummer, and you played it. I was like, I have never heard this song in my life.
Yeah, I figured that'd be the one song that you did know.
Yeah. This one,
because I knew it before I listened to the album. Yeah.
Did you know Jesus, Etc.?
Not before.
That one and this one, I think, are the two most popular based on my research.
Yeah.
But definitely this one's a popular one. I think it also might be the most different because it's the most accessible and the most poppy.
Yeah. It's definitely the most poppy one.
It's not at all a metal sounding song.
No.
But percussive wise, the very first 5 to 10 seconds is this processed hip hop sounding beat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is this? And then the song comes in with the natural acoustic drums and the rest of the instrumentation. And you're like, that was just some strange choice they decided to put at the beginning.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why, but there's got to be a reason.
Well, I think I read somewhere that They had to get rid of the original drummer that they had for the album because he wasn't doing the style of drumming that they want. That Jeff Tweedy wanted for the album.
Jeff Tweedy had in his mind some idea of the percussion drumming that he wanted, and the drummer that they had, who had been playing with them for a while, just couldn't figure it out and wasn't
really willing to. I don't think.
Yeah,
maybe
it caused a lot of problems. And someone else that he had played with before, I can't remember his name. They brought him in and he was fantastic. And the band, Jeff Tweedy's like, should we make him our permanent drummer? And everyone else in the band was like, yes.
Yes.
Paraphrasing here, guys. I'm paraphrasing. That didn't actually happen.
That's not how it actually happened.
Yeah.
Don't be crazy.
But anyways, this song is about reminiscing about going to metal shows and having fun when they were younger.
Yeah.
I think more specifically, he's talking about being young and innocent. Like he talks about, I miss when he's talking about being innocent.
I miss the innocence I've known.
So I think that's what it's about. He's just picking specifically going to metal shows.
Yeah. Playing Kiss covers, beautiful and stoned.
On Lyric Genius, some people, like one of the big annotations on that line was they thought that Jeff Tweedy was talking about going and like drinking a lot and going to watch metal bands specifically to make fun of them, but ended up having fun in the process, which I don't really think so. I think he genuinely misses those heavy metal bands that he liked as a kid. So I don't know who made that annotation, but I disagree with it.
Yeah.
Which means don't believe everything you read, kids.
Online. Yeah, don't believe everything you read online.
Yeah. I like
or in
Genius,
print.
The lyric site, because you can get some really good insight, but
sometimes
people are just making things up. Yeah. Everyone's interpreting in their own way, and whoever interpreted it that way, I think, was wrong.
I never once thought, oh, he's totally making fun of those metal bands.
Yeah, I thought he
really liked metal bands. He probably
kid.
really enjoyed going to shows and playing covers of them.
And I think it's interesting that the chorus is, she fell in love with the drummer.
She fell in love with the drummer.
Because I don't think that's the point of the song.
No, it's not.
It's the point of the song is not a girl who fell in love with the drummer. It's about him being younger and missing those days of being innocent.
Yeah.
But it's just
the innocence of someone falling in love with a musician that they like.
But it was a very good song. Moving on to track number 8, which is called I'm the Man Who Loves You. I gave it 4 out of 5.
I'm the man who loves you.
And this sounds odd in
the context of the album?
Not kind of yes, but there's this fuzzy guitar at the beginning that sounds like a classic rock sound. It was just, when I heard that guitar tone, I was like, oh.
You were like, okay.
Like it reminds me of the guitar tone on Switchfoot's song Bull in a China Shop.
Yeah.
But it's this really thick, fuzzy guitar tone. But it kind of goes away, and then it turns into a song that, when the verse comes in, I think, this sounds like it could be a Beck song. I think I had said that before for another artist on this podcast.
Yeah, you have, yeah.
But this one definitely sounds, not his voice, but just the sound of the song. This one's very catchy.
That's funny.
I think it's about loving somebody from afar, because he talks about wanting to write a letter but not knowing how, and like saying, I wish I could just tell you what I feel and like hold your hand.
Yeah.
But not having the courage to do so.
Yep.
Moving on to track number 9, which is called Pot Kettle Black. I gave this 4.5 out of 5, and it's my honorable mention.
Nice.
The title comes from this saying, pot calling the kettle black. Have you ever heard that before?
Yep.
I'd never heard that before, but apparently it's a fairly common phrase.
That's like the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah. And pots and kettles are often like
the same
cast
color.
Iron and black.
Are often the same color.
So it's a reference for someone being either a
ignorant.
hypocrite or not knowing their own faults.
Yeah, being ignorant or hypocritical. Yeah.
But that's the theme of the song. He alludes to a lot of other people's faults, but then in the chorus he talks about pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah.
So he's trying to be aware. He's like, actually, maybe I'm at fault for the same things I'm calling other people out for.
Yeah, he talks about, he's like, I don't want to be the pot calling the kettle black or whatever.
Yeah. Which is I actually like that phrase a lot. Maybe I'll use it from now on.
Yeah.
But as soon as I heard the song the first time, I was convinced that guitar chord pattern at the beginning was from another song. Do 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 do. Like, do you remember how the guitar chord sounds?
Only one thing comes to mind, and
What's
it's
that?
a Frightened Rabbit song.
Which one?
The one that goes, "You were not the cure for cancer." I think it's called Nothing Like
Nothing
You.
Like You, yeah. Great song. That was my favorite song on that album that you recommended.
Yep.
You're right. That chord progression is pretty similar to that.
Bum, bum, ba-da-da-da-dum,
But
bum,
when
bum,
I was listening
ba-da-da-dum.
to it, I kept thinking The Cure, In Between Days, their song.
Oh.
And I was like, maybe it doesn't sound like that. I'm not really sure. So I typed into Google, pot, kettle, black, Wilco, sounds like. That's all I typed in.
Uh-huh.
And one of the first things that popped up was Wilco versus The Cure. So
Really?
somebody else made that comparison
Interesting.
too. If you listen to the two songs, it's not exact, but you can hear
It's
it.
similar though.
Yeah. But I just thought that was funny that someone else made that connection with The
Also
Cure.
thought the same thing. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Moving on to track number 10, which is called Poor Places.
Poor Places. Yeah.
I gave this 4.75 out of 5, and it's my last recommendation.
4.75 out of 5. Oh.
Super cool instrumentation choices on the song. There's some weird stuff that comes in.
Yeah.
It starts off with this keyboard-sounding drone thing. I'm not really sure. Maybe an electric keyboard that's kind of playing continuously while he starts to sing over top of it. And it plays for a little while, and then a piano comes in over top of it gradually. And eventually, the piano takes over completely when the one line comes in. And it makes no difference to me.
Mm-hmm. When it's hot in the poor places tonight.
But then the percussion cuts out, and it's pretty much just piano and guitar
outside.
that hold the song down.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think the instrumentation and the arrangement is really cool in the song. I think that's what sold me. The melody is really cool too, but I just like how they put the song together. The song ends with the music dissipating and becoming fuzzy and getting more staticky,
Yeah.
while you hear this voice saying,
Yankee Hotel Foxtrot.
yes, it's
Yankee
the lady saying Yankee Hotel Foxtrot.
And
They illegally sampled that from somebody
really?
else's. I don't remember what the recording was, but they put it in their song without clearing any samples or anything.
Uh-oh.
And there was a lawsuit that followed, and they had to settle out of court, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah.
If they had the label backing them at the beginning, maybe that would have been taken care of. But oh well.
That's pretty funny.
But I just think the way that song's put together is why I like it so much.
Yeah.
The melodies. Moving on to the last song, which is called Reservations. And I got reservations about this song. I gave it 2 out of 5.
Yeah.
It's my least favorite. Also,
wonder
it's
why.
almost 7.5 minutes long.
I wonder why it's your least favorite.
That's the sound, and it's so long.
Isn't it like half of it's just silence?
There's half of it some weird sounds,
Yeah.
droning sounds, which every time though I get to it, I skipped it.
Maybe
I don't need
this
to listen to this.
maybe this will change your mind, Steve.
What
I just
will?
thought of this.
What'd you think of?
What do you think? Why did they put that in, do you think?
Because it's the last song, and they're like, we should put something here.
No.
I don't know. Reservations. Do you know what the song's about? It's very upfront. It's not difficult to figure out.
I've got reservations about so many things, but not about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's obviously like
Not
earlier in the
about
song,
you.
he talks to the girl and talks
I'm
about how
the
he's
man
got
who loves you.
all these faults. He's got all these problems. And he doesn't like himself, but he's got all these
So let me-
reservations, but not about her.
Let me present this to you or propose this to you. The whole album is a stream of consciousness.
Okay.
Starts off being drunk, and then all the other songs that follow are like things that are going through his mind while he's drunk, and then those last like 3 minutes of nothing, he passes out.
Could be. Because
be
obviously he
that.
does talk. He's drunk in the city in the first song, and the first song actually ends with "I'm the man who loves you." I think
Yeah.
he says that. So that's an interesting thing to say. Maybe the
Could
whole.
be.
Yeah, I think the whole album's connected. Definitely.
That's my conspiracy theory about what this album's about.
I don't think it's a conspiracy. It's just a good observation.
Yeah,
perhaps.
could be about that.
I thought this was a cool album overall.
Yeah. I really
Um,
like it.
I was like, okay, I like Wilco's sound, and then I listened to a couple of their other songs from other albums,
Much different.
and the other songs are much more alt country, like
Yeah.
Wikipedia says they are.
Yeah. Yeah, this album was definitely a weird one for them.
Yeah, it's more experimental.
Yeah.
But it's popular for a reason.
I think it
It's
works,
their
though.
breakthrough. I mean, they were popular before this album, but
But
this
this one
their
was like-
big breakthrough. Yeah, I
Shot
liked
through the
it.
roof, yeah.
I'm not like super keen on exploring the rest of their catalog, but I might come back and revisit this.
You might
album.
like the album. I think it's either called Blue Sky Blue or Sky Blue Sky.
All right, I'll check that out. I do know that one of their more recent albums is called Schmilko.
Yep.
Wilco Schmilko.
Yeah.
That's funny. So I might check out some more of their stuff, but we'll get there.
Yeah, for sure. On to Direct Hits album, Brainless God. It is much different than that Wilco album.
I'd say so.
Like we said earlier, it is a kind of hardcore melodic punk, I'd say.
I put pop punk in there.
Pop punk, okay. We'll say pop punk.
Melodic, slight touch of hardcore pop punk.
Yeah, and as you can maybe guess by the title of the album, the whole thing is kind of dealing with that subject about religion and about how it's how they're against it. And I believe through this album they want other people to also kind of see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And
I don't think they're against religion. It's just their views on it.
yeah.
Their lead singer, Nick Woods, I've got a quote here from him talking about religion. So if any of you listeners are religious, I would identify myself as a religious person, even though I love this album. Don't take this as an attack on your religion. It's just their views.
Yeah.
But here's what Nick Woods talked about in an interview where somebody's asking him about his religious views. He says, "I'm the product of 12 years of Catholic schools, and I have no clue whether God exists. I'm not an anti-religious person, though. You do what you gotta do to fall asleep at night. I don't begrudge anyone that comfort, but don't take yourself too seriously because you don't know the answer, not to anything truly important."
That actually really jives with what this album is all about,
I think so, too.
pretty much.
Like
If actually that would be a very good way to sum up what this entire album is about.
It is.
So why don't we dive in?
It's a concept album.
Yes,
also.
it is a concept album.
Do you know the whole concept, or do you want to
I
touch
think
upon that
so.
before diving in?
I think I know what the whole concept is.
Let's discuss that real quick before going into the
Okay.
individual songs.
So in the various tracks, he presents different, let's just call them stories, I guess, with different characters in them. And as the album progresses, it is, they kind of all join in, or most of them join in at a certain point.
Yeah, I think they do join in. But what's the large context? What are they all experiencing? Like, what's the big thing that's going on?
Yeah, the overarching themes.
Yes.
The whole idea of this album is that, is it a bomb
Yeah.
that's like exploding the earth, or is it like human caused or something like that, or is it just
so
like
there's nuclear war and people are aware that the bombs are about to be dropped.
yeah? And some people, it says that they have like minute to 10 or so, or some people have like an hour or something like that, and
Yeah.
so it's basically about what these different characters are doing in those last minutes of their life, basically. And so it brings in a lot of themes of what happens after death, what life is really about, what's worth doing, etc., etc.
Etc. Etc.
And so the first song is called On and On. And it has, what's that melody that they use in here?
Auld Lang Syne.
Well, how do you say it?
Auld Lang Syne.
Auld Lang Syne?
Yeah, I'm sure there might be an actual way to pronounce it. Auld Lang Syne.
How does that go again?
Should all acquaintance be forgot in days of Auld Lang Syne? Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
That's Auld Lang Syne.
Yeah. So that melody reoccurs throughout the album.
Yeah. Pops up
A couple times, yeah. But anyway, on to the first track called On and On. So it has that beginning part where they use the Auld Lang Syne melody, and then it kind of like breaks, and then we get the trademark direct hit little thing that they do at the beginning of every album, where he screams in the background, "F you, get pumped," and then the music starts again.
Yeah.
And that happens on every single album they do, right?
Yep. That's always usually on the first track.
It's pretty cool. And I think this song is basically about how life's just a tale of death.
Yeah.
Pretty
And
much.
It introduces the
And it
whole
goes
album,
on and on
talking
and
about how the
on and
president went on TV and said the bomb, like, I
bomb's
apologize,
coming.
but the bomb's coming.
Yeah.
And
Like,
then resigned.
goodbye, everybody. I'm not president anymore.
And then talks about how life's a party
Yeah.
when we're all going to die.
Yeah. On to track number 2. It's called "The World Is Ending." In parentheses, no one cares. And just correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this song is from the point of view of a religious person telling everybody that who's not religious that they're all screwed.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Saying you can change you should
Like,
change your ways.
Change your ways. We're about to die. Change your ways.
Yeah.
So like that's
Otherwise, you're going to hell.
yeah, like that. So that they present that point of view right after they learn about the bomb. It's a very catchy chorus, very poppy, and the verses are a little bit more screamy.
Yes, they are.
I don't really mind his scream as much as other people's.
His doesn't sound like the proper way to scream. Like
Yeah.
like when you listen to like hardcore, like heavy bands, and they
Yeah,
like scream properly, quote unquote, and
Right.
it's unappealing to me usually. But his is I like his.
yeah, same here. But anyway, so I guess just try to keep that in mind. So the title of that track, "The World Is Ending," in parentheses, no one cares, is like someone's view who is religious. Like, oh,
Yeah.
the world's ending and nobody really cares. Nobody cares to change their ways.
Yeah.
Basically. On to track number 3, which is my first recommendation. It's called "Buried Alive."
Might be one of my favorite of their songs in general.
It's a very good song. It's a very poppy song, really cheerful sounding song about a not so cheerful subject.
It's really dark.
Yeah. But here we see one of the characters that he presents in the album, who is a serial killer.
Yep.
He kidnaps women and kills them,
Yes, he does.
and then like keeps them.
Parts of them.
Kind of parts
maybe,
of them,
or
yeah.
pictures as a trophy.
Yeah. But this is a little bit different though, because the world is ending.
So he's got his last victim.
He's got his last victim. Yeah, and like one of the lines is like he doesn't have to worry about the cops anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So like this is like a new experience for him or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like
But it takes a turn.
it does take a turn for the better.
I'd say so.
I'd say so. He's like, maybe I don't want to kill you.
Yeah, they fall in love, kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
And they
it's kinda
enjoy the
weird.
last sunset together.
Yeah, they sit out and enjoy the last sunset before they're destroyed.
Yeah.
I like that song though.
I do
It's
too.
super
Super catchy.
good. On to the next song.
We.
Track number 4, "Getting What He Asked For." So this is another new character. It's a woman who is in a relationship with a guy who's, I'm assuming, is like either emotionally or physically abusive to her.
One
Like
or
it's,
the
it's
other,
not
yeah.
a healthy relationship, and she's like put up with it for 20 years.
Definitely.
And now that she knows the world is ending, she decides to kill him.
I think she
pretty
says
much.
he doesn't deserve to see the end.
Yeah, he was like, I don't want him to see the end of the world.
So she controls his end.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Very catchy song though.
It's violent.
And it kind of raises the question that maybe I think they're trying to raise, is that maybe she should have stood up sooner.
She probably definitely
shouldn't have waited till the end of the world to confront him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great song. And I guess I should say all the songs kind of sound similar.
I think
Not many of them sound like drastically different.
and a lot of them are in the same key.
Yeah.
If you listen to that, a lot of them are in the same key, and I think that was intentional because it's very much an intentional concept album.
Yeah.
I think that was the goal. Similar melodies, similar keys to kind of help everything flow together.
Yeah.
It's a huge, ambitious thing to make a concept album like this.
Yeah, and I think it works.
I do too.
On to the next song, track number 5, which is called "White Robes," and it's my second recommendation.
Good choice.
It's a very good song. It's the story of a cult leader gathering all of his followers to go kill themselves in the woods as the world explodes, so they can become neurons or particles or whatever and go up into the atmosphere.
Which reminds me of Heaven's Gate. I don't know if you...
Yeah, the Heaven's
was-
Gate. Is it? It's a cult, right?
It was
Heaven's
a
Gate
cult that they all killed themselves so that they could get on the Hale-Bopp comet as it passed Earth or something weird.
Yeah, something crazy like that.
Cults are just...
They're strange.
That's for another podcast.
Yeah, we'll let someone else deal with that.
Yeah.
And then we come to track number 6, which is this the end of the A-side?
I believe so.
The song is called "Heaven is a Black Hole."
Because it ends with the main theme, the Auld Lang Syne theme, right?
Yeah. And this is also not a story one.
Correct.
I think this is kind of the band kind of giving their take on I guess their views of religion.
Mm-hmm.
And they want people to accept that like heaven is a black hole, like they, as in the concept of heaven or whatever, is not something that one should think about because we don't know, because no one has, because like we can't know what happens after someone dies.
Yeah, you can't prove
Essentially is what they're saying. Like
Yeah.
they're not just saying like they're not being aggressive about it.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist. They're just saying.
They're just saying we shouldn't worry a whole lot about it right now because we don't know. Is I think kind of what the message is saying.
I think that's what they're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and that it's kind of like that quote that you read. But anyway, that song is also very good. And then yeah, like you said, it goes back to the recall to the Old Lang Syne at the end of that. To end out the A side, and then it moves to the B side.
And it starts with a bang.
It does start with the bang. The song's called We're Effed.
We're effed. Yeah, the F word. Oh, man.
And I'm kind of confused about what this song's about. I think it's about people who were in purgatory and then they came back to Earth because they had like committed suicide and it turns out like that wasn't the right way to die or something.
Yeah, I think it's people guiding other people in the afterlife.
Okay.
And trying to help them avoid the same horrors. Like it gets there's some graphic ways that they describe it. Like, we'll pluck out your eyes so you can't see the end.
Yeah.
We'll box out your ears so you can't hear the end. Like weird things like that.
Yeah, the whole last part of this album, the concept kind of gets confusing. Like the first half on the A side, it was all very simple. Like here's a character in their story, here's a character in their story,
and then this is where it starts to get a little bit more abstract.
Yeah, a little bit more abstract and muddled. But I like that song though. And whenever I was looking at the lyrics to this song, I was like, how do they come up with this idea for this song?
I don't know, man.
It was just so ridiculous. On to track number 8, which is a little bit more straightforward. We see some characters from the previous songs. They get to the pearly gates.
What is this song called?
Bank of Elevators.
Yes.
So they get to the pearly gates.
Which would be where you are admitted to heaven.
Yeah, where you meet St. Peter or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know if
that's
not really in the Bible. That's just a...
No, that's just a classic
idea.
Trope that people use to describe heaven.
Mm-hmm. And so that's what they're referring to.
Like The Simpsons, if you've ever seen a Simpsons episode with God in it, he's like a big bald dude with a beard and there's like a golden gate.
Is this the song where they're talking about like taking a number, getting in line?
Yes.
Yeah. And if you have a complaint, it might take
centuries to hear for God to hear. If you think
you're in the wrong place, or if you need to.
Yeah. So like the characters reach the pearly gates, and they're like, and St. Peter's like, oh, just got this message in. You're actually not allowed in because you did this in life, or something like that.
No.
And then
side note.
Yeah.
When you were referring to that, you said, "Oh, heard that message." I've heard it often said that people, and I say it too. Oh, or like that, like when someone like rushes past you and you might almost bump into someone like, oh, sorry about that.
Yeah,
I've heard that "ope" is definitely a Midwestern thing.
Yep. We say that I say that all the time.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that because I heard you say "ope." I say it from time to time, but I think Midwesterners say it a lot.
It rolled off the tongue naturally.
Minnesotans and
Iowans
and Wisconsinites
and Dakotans.
Wisconsin?
Wisconsins.
Wisconsin. Who knows? But yeah, it's a Midwestern thing for sure.
Cheeseheads is what we call them.
Sorry to interject, but I had to.
Sorry.
Anyway,
I think I'm getting this right. They can either like accept their fate, or they can go
put in
a number or something like that, or they can do something else that'll be more
file a grievance or a complaint.
Yeah, that'll be like more arduous than just accepting your fate. So I don't know. It's this is where it gets kind of muddled because they're talking about talking about heaven.
Yeah.
Like what heaven would be like.
Mm-hmm.
But since you can't really know, they also saying you can't really know. So I'm like,
well, they're just going based on people's conceptions of heaven. and,
Gotcha.
and what you'd expect pop culture to say heaven is.
Gotcha. I suppose that does make sense. On to track number 9, which is called Back to the Tower.
Mm-hmm.
Also not exactly sure what this is about. Two characters meet who they knew each other in life, I think.
I think so. I think it's two people who decided that they need to get out of there.
Get
They
out
go
of heaven.
Back to the towers, maybe go back to Earth
Something else.
or somewhere else. I think that's what they agree that they shouldn't be there and they're trying to get out.
Yeah. Otherwise, I don't really have anything else to say about that one.
It's super catchy.
Yeah.
Every song.
I mean, most of the songs in here are catchy.
I think it's one of my. I wouldn't say one of my favorites, but it's up there catchy wise. Yeah.
Yeah. On to track number 10. It's called I Told You a Lie. And I believe the cult leader comes back in here. And he essentially says that I lied to you because I was trying to make sense out of life and I was using, like...
Getting power.
Yeah, I was using that...
I robbed you of your chance to experience or think for yourself.
Yeah.
I really like the first line. It's kind of awkward to admit that I've been less than forthright when I implied that I was ready to die.
Yeah.
Because he made everyone else follow him.
Yeah.
Even though they weren't thinking for themselves. What a strange perspective to write from.
Yeah, I know.
All this albums
Yeah, like I don't think I would have ever thought to write an album like this.
I guarantee I never would have.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Track number 11 is called Home to You.
Penultimate track? Second
yes.
Last? Yeah.
And this is my honorable mention. So this is, remember earlier when I said someone maybe had an hour?
Yeah.
This guy, I think he's a guy in prison.
Yes.
And he hears over like the speaker system in the prison like, oh, there's a bomb coming. We've got about an hour left to live.
Oh, there's a bomb coming. Oh.
Oops.
Yeah, so they let the prisoners go.
Yeah, so he's like, and then he talks about like, so whenever I heard that, I just started like trying to get back to you to see you one last time.
To see
so
his
I
love.
assume, see his love one last time.
This reminds me of Stephen King's book, The Stand.
Oh, really?
Some of the main characters were... do you know the premise of that book?
Not really, no.
The government had created a super flu, a weaponized super flu, and somehow it gets out and infects...
Whoa.
It probably kills like 99% of the population. There's some people left that had an immunity. And there's one of the main characters was locked in a prison. And everyone else had died, and he was just in prison by himself.
He was just there?
And one of the dark characters, the bad guy, kind of lets him out and takes him on as a follower. So that's what I think of when I hear this song. Even though the guards... in the song let the prisoner out, but it's just like in the end of the world situation, what do they do with prisoners?
Right.
It's an odd
that
thing.
makes sense.
It's an interesting
there's like, you guys are free.
Yeah.
You guys got an hour of freedom.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's on his way back to meet his love, but he does not make it. At the end of this song, you hear a big boom.
Are you sure he doesn't make it with just a few seconds to spare?
No, I'm fairly certain he doesn't.
I couldn't remember.
I can look up the lyrics real quick, though. Yeah, here we go. So, during the chorus changes slightly from the first time that you hear it to the last time that you hear it.
Uh-huh.
The first time, one of the lines is, nothing mattered more, 2, 3, 4 wouldn't have crossed my mind. Oh, I think we better check the time. Because, before that he says, or the chorus says, because if I only got to see you for a minute or two, well, it would be worth it. Well, it would all be worth my time.
But in the end, doesn't he say it was all worth my time? It all was worth my time?
At the end, he said, oh yeah, because I only got to see you for a minute or two, but
it was
worth my time. Nothing mattered more, 2, 3, 4 wouldn't have crossed my mind. Oh, I think we just ran out of time.
So he gets back, sees his love for a minute or two.
And then they die. Yep. And then it goes on. So again, that was my honorable mention. And then it goes on to the last track called A Message for the Angels Part 2, in parentheses, Brainless God.
This is where everything comes to a head.
Yeah, people... he says like demons are at the gates of heaven, but...
I think
I assume that means like everybody
when those
died.
two characters had left, I think they went to go recruit the rest of the characters.
Oh, okay.
Remember those two characters at going
Oh,
back
yeah.
to the towers? I think
Yeah.
they went to go recruit people that disenfranchised, maybe disillusioned people.
Yeah.
Other characters.
And basically, they get to the gates of heaven, and they're like, "Hey, we want to know like why this is so messed up. Like why?
all the existential questions.
Yeah, like why did you let this happen? Like how could you do this, God? Like we want an answer, basically. And if you're not going to give us one, then prepare for a fight, pretty much.
Yeah, and that's the probably the biggest theme, probably their biggest views on the song.
Yeah.
The whole album.
Yeah.
And
Why? How could
should this
things
happen?
on Earth get so crappy? Like if you think about all the different stories that they presented.
Yeah.
Like, how could that even be possible if, that's what they say, brainless God. And then it goes back to Old Lang Syne.
Old Lang Syne.
And then eventually they just get back to that main point of life's a story about death, so let's have a good time and party.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
What a crazy album. Crazy. It's a weird narrative and a crazy story to express the ideas they have about religion and existence.
Yeah, which again, like, aren't aggressive towards religion not at all.
It can be perceived as it if you. It can be, but
it's more.
I think if you listen
it's-
to that quote that I said from him,
Yeah.
it encompasses their views and should disarm you a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, hopefully it would anyway.
Yeah. But it's an interesting thing to listen to, nonetheless,
Yeah,
and it's very catchy.
it's a great album, super catchy, awesome.
Looking towards the future,
Yes.
next week we're going to do another one-off, as we always like to flip-flop each week. And we are going to be reviewing the classic Led Zeppelin album, which is Led Zeppelin 4, sometimes I think known as Zoso.
Zuzu.
But it's a great
I don't
album,
know.
so we'll be reviewing that for you all.
Yes.
And the following week, we will have another regular format episode. And do you have a recommendation, Jesse?
I sure do.
What is it?
It is an album by the band Management, or better
Management?
known as MGMT.
Is that short for management?
I don't know. That's what I think of.
I just always know MGMT. I'm like, that's a strange title. MGMT, okay.
And the album is called Oracular Spectacular.
Well, that's definitely a title.
Oracular? Oracular, right?
Something. Or I don't know. Maybe.
But
All
that's what it's called.
Okay, well, I guess I'll start listening to that.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to recommend is an album by the band A Wilhelm Scream.
Okay.
And it is my favorite album by them called Career Suicide.
Career Suicide.
Just a heads up, when they wrote this album, they decided they wanted to make every single song fast.
Really?
So that's what you have to look forward to.
Nice. I like fast songs.
Yeah. Anything else to say before we sign off? How's your beer as it warmed up?
It's actually still good.
Yeah, mine's still pretty good. The hops came forward a little bit more.
In for a little bit.
The booziness didn't really come forward. I thought it might have as it warmed up, but it really hasn't. This is a very pleasant, like I said, smooth, very drinkable double IPA.
Nice.
I'm very happy with this. I would have it again.
Yeah, I'm happy with this too. And actually, the flavors are kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's a little bit tart, but just tart enough to where you just get a little bit of tartness and not too much. You know what I mean? It's good.
I'd like to keep an eye out for this Clown Shoes. They've got some different variations. Like when I purchased this one, they
of
had
the
a
cake.
pineapple space cake, which
Oh.
kind of cool to try if I can find
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
But let's say we give it the magic phrase and finish our brews.
Sounds like a plan.
Shibbidi-people-doo! Oh. Wow. Thanks
Well-
again, everybody.
Yep. Thanks for listening.
My name is Stephen Johnston,
And my name is Jesse Titus.
and this has been episode number 60 of American Brews.
Number 6.
And tunes.
Here's a theme song, you know it's not a mean song. It's a good song, just as it should song. American